A lot of first-time home buyers buy what's called a starter home, which is exactly what it sounds like, a home to start a person on the path of home ownership. A starter home is smaller and less expensive than a forever home, if you will, and it puts a new buyer on the first rung of the equity growth ladder. But here's the thing. If you're shopping for a starter home, I need you to pause your life for just a few minutes and watch this video. There's a way that you can use this purchase to supercharge your financial position. Why settle for the first rung on the equity ladder when you could catapult yourself right up to the fourth or fifth? Today we're digging into the math and looking at real examples of how your first home purchase can truly be the best investment you've ever made. I'm Jon Schwartz, and this is Investment Property Nerd. Thanks so much for watching. If you find yourself learning something new, please hit that like button. And if you have a question at any point, type it in the comments below and I'll respond as soon as I can. So my thesis is simple. I'm going to lay it out and then we're going to look at real examples from real home listings to demonstrate how you can use your first home purchase to best prepare yourself financially for your forever home. I should also point out that our examples will be in Los Angeles, where I live and own homes. If you're in Southern California, great. If not, just take the prices and profits and divide them by 4 or 6, maybe 8. But the point is, LA is an expensive, tough market. If this strategy works here, it will work anywhere. So my thesis is this: your starter home should be a duplex. Stop shopping for that Joanna Gaines inspired 2-1 dripping with shiplap and set your search criteria for a duplex. Live in one side and rent the other. Why? Because it's going to put you in a much better financial position when it's time to buy your forever home. How much better? You will be amazed. And isn't that the point of a starter home? You've saved diligently for years for a down payment, you're ready to quit wasting money on rent and start building equity. So it's time to buy, but you don't really need the family house yet. You don't have kids yet, or the kids are still infants, so this purchase is really about setting you up for the next one. If that's the case, and you want to make the smartest purchase you can, you should buy a duplex. Now look, we're going to get to the numbers to show you exactly why buying a duplex is so advantageous. But first we have to deal with the objections. Many people understand intuitively that owning rental property creates income and equity and options. But being a landlord? Dealing with tenants? Not everybody can easily wrap their head around what owning and living in a duplex might actually be like. So we're going to tackle the top 4 objections that people have when considering it. Objection number 1, I do not want to be a landlord. I don't want to deal with tenants or their toilets or late rent or anything. I don't want to do it. Well, I have good news for you. You don't have to. There's a service out there called property management, and a property management company does everything you don't want to. Property management will collect rent, whether it's on time or late. They'll take your tenant's phone calls. They'll send the plumber to deal with the broken toilet. They'll even handle an eviction were one to happen, and we'll get to evictions in a moment. And you can hire a property management company to handle just one unit, the other unit in your duplex. The fee that a property management company collects for their services is based on the unit's rental income. In Los Angeles, you can find a 6% fee. In lower rent markets in the Midwest or Southeast, you're more likely to find a 10% fee. And if you think 6 or 10% of rental income is a bit steep, there are less expensive alternatives, like the company Hemlane. Now, I'm not affiliated with Hemlane at all. I just think they offer a very cool service. They're basically a web portal and call center for your tenant. Your tenant pays rent to Hemlane. If there are any problems with the unit, your tenant calls Hemlane or submits a repair request online, and Hemlane finds a service person and handles all the scheduling. It's like property management light, which is probably all you need if you're living next door to your unit. And it's cheap. One unit would cost just $58 per month. That's less than your phone bill. And finally, option 3 is to just be a landlord. I'll let you in on a little secret now. I'm a landlord. I live in a duplex. My tenants live downstairs. They've never called me in the middle of the night, and the only toilet I've had to unclog was my own, after my wife pooped in it. But seriously, being a landlord is not that difficult. What's most important is to have someone with experience help you get started. Once the ball is rolling, it's really not a big deal. And it's worth it for the financial benefits, which we will get to shortly. Okay, objection number 2. Buying a house is hard enough. How in the world am I supposed to figure out how to buy a duplex? A duplex is like 2 houses under one roof, so it must be twice as cumbersome a process, right? Fortunately, the answer is no. Buying a duplex is exactly like buying a house. Let me explain. Condos, houses, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes are all classified together as residential real estate. Apartment buildings with 5 units or more are considered commercial real estate, along with strip malls and office buildings and everything else that isn't residential. So buying anything from a condo to a duplex to a fourplex is the exact same process. You would use the same agent to buy a house or a duplex. You would use the same bank or mortgage broker and get the same 30-year fixed rate loan product on a house or a duplex. You'd use the same insurance company and get the same homeowner's insurance policy. You can even get the same home warranty. From tip to tail, it's the same process. Really, the only additional detail is confirming any rent that's being paid. So word of advice, buying a duplex is the same process, but you want to do it with an agent who specializes in buying duplexes and other multifamily properties. Moving on. Objection number 3. I want my privacy. I don't want to hear somebody on the other side of the wall. So this really depends on where you live, but if you live in any city, please take my word that the privacy afforded by a house isn't as impenetrable as you may think. I myself owned and lived in 2 houses in Los Angeles before moving into my duplex. Both homes were in a quieter, hilly neighborhood, and in both cases I was really looking forward to the quiet that the home would afford me. At my first home, my neighbors on one side were a couple of nice guys who, in their free time, hosted their moped gang for beers and moped repair in their driveway. My neighbor on the other side was a nice, quiet, elderly gentleman who cleaned his driveway with a gas-powered leaf blower every other morning. My second home was better, but I would have really appreciated it if my neighbor on one side would have closed his window while having sex, and my neighbor on the other side would have closed his window while watching German football at full volume and having sex. So my point here is, if you live in a city like Los Angeles, it's hard to escape your neighbors. The way I see it, I'd rather have a choice over who my neighbors are. And if they are going to occasionally disrupt my peace and quiet, at least they're paying me for the privilege. And finally, objection number 4. What happens if I have to do an eviction? This is an especially worrisome question in Los Angeles and other tenant-friendly markets. Evictions can drag on for months and get quite costly. No one, neither tenant nor landlord nor property management company, wants to see an eviction. So the question is how you can avoid and then cope with one were it to happen. So firstly, preventing an eviction begins with finding the right tenant. The great news is that you're going to buy a duplex in a place where you want to live. That means that other people like you are going to want to live there too. If you're still watching this video, it means you're not the kind of person who's trying to skip out on rent and scam a landlord. You're the kind of person who thinks about your financial future and doesn't want to ruin your credit report with an eviction. So you should expect that somebody just like you, somebody who cares about their FICO score, is going to be interested in the unit you rent in your duplex. And when you have applicants for your unit, there are a bunch of websites that make qualifying them a breeze. I use cozy.com and they have this automated credit check thing. It's great. I would also recommend, again, working with an agent who focuses on multifamily properties and can get you started. Once you know the 3 steps to qualify an applicant, it's a cakewalk. But, what if you buy a duplex that has a tenant in place and that tenant is terrible and stops paying rent and you have to do an eviction? Well, this may sound callous, but in a market like Los Angeles, you're actually the winner in that scenario. Let me explain. Los Angeles has rent control, so the longer a tenant has been living in an apartment, the lower their rent is relative to market rent, which is what a vacant apartment would rent for on the open market. So if you inherit a long-term tenant who stops paying rent or otherwise necessitates an eviction, once the eviction occurs and you clean up the unit, you'll be able to rent it for more money. So while it seems like an eviction equals financial ruin, so long as you have some reserves saved, going through an eviction will actually make your property more profitable and more valuable. So those are the big objections that I hear to buying a duplex. If you have any others, please let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. All right, so now we get to talk about money and how much more money you'll have in your pocket by buying a duplex instead of buying a traditional starter home. We're looking at actual Los Angeles listings that have sold in the past 6 weeks. So these are real examples. First, we're going to look at our super cute starter home and then compare it to some duplex options. Let's take a look. 6023 Comey Avenue, which sold on September 30th, 2020 for $956,000. Now, yes, I know what you're thinking. Almost $1 million for a starter home? Well, what can I say? Welcome to Los Angeles. The median home price here, at the time of this recording, median home price, is $794,000. And that includes the parts of the city where you would not want to live. We're looking at well-located homes in Los Angeles, and yes, a starter home costs almost $1 million. Let's get back to the listing. So, 6023 Comey Avenue is an adorable 2-bed, 1.5 bath, 909 square feet. It's located in a really cool area between Culver City and West Adams. Lots of small art galleries around here. Now, this may not be where you want to buy a forever home, but it's a great location for a starter home. Let's take a look inside. Nice landscaping, clean interior, lovely updated kitchen, stylish bathroom, cute backyard, space for entertaining. It's great. What a lovely starter home. So, what's this going to run us? Let's take a look at the numbers. At the time of this recording, the national average home mortgage rate is 3.03%, and we're going to look at a traditional 30-year fixed-rate mortgage with a 20% down payment. In addition to the down payment, we'll estimate 2% in closing costs, so the funds needed to close the purchase are $210,320. The monthly cost to keep the property is $4,316. This is called the PITI payment. The first P and the first I stand for principal and interest, which are the two elements of the mortgage payment. So the first P and the first I are the mortgage payment. The T stands for taxes, which are 1.27% of the purchase price in Los Angeles City. And the final I stands for insurance, which we'll estimate at $800 per year or $67 per month. That may seem low for an almost $1 million house, but keep in mind that this is still just a 900 square foot home, and insurance is based on rebuild costs. With this property, the land is actually more valuable than the building sitting on it, and it's only the building that gets insured. But I digress. So, $4,300 per month is pretty steep, especially when you can rent a 2-bedroom apartment around the corner for $2,200 or $2,300. But that's the cost of stepping onto the equity ladder, right? Buying the starter home today will put us in a better position to buy our forever home in, say, 2 or 5 years, right? Well, let's see what 2 and 5 years from now looks like. Let's look at our long-term gains. These gains are comprised of 2 elements, principal paydown and appreciation. Principal paydown is the loan balance that you've paid off. In 2 years, you would have paid off $32,264 of your loan. In 5 years, you would have paid off $84,473 of your loan. The other element, appreciation, is not set in stone. Most years, homes grow in value, but not every year. According to the FHFA, home prices in Los Angeles have increased 34 of the last 45 years. Now, I made a whole video about appreciation and how best to incorporate it into financial projections, so I'm going to link that above and in the description if you're interested. For this example, we're going to assume a 4% annual appreciation rate, which is well below Los Angeles' long-term average annual appreciation rate of 6.3%. So while appreciation is not guaranteed, we're going to consider a conservative assumption that's well below the long-term average. As you can see, the appreciation gains are big and contribute the most to the long-term gains of a starter home. In 2 years, you will have built up $110,000 of equity to put toward the purchase of your forever home. If you stay in your starter home for 5 years, you will have built up $291,000 of equity. And this equity is on top of the down payment equity. So after 5 years, you'll have about $500,000 to put toward your forever home, minus the fees associated with selling the starter home. This is why buying a starter home is a great idea. It puts you on the path of home ownership, gets you on the equity ladder, and sets you up for your future. But you know what sets you up even better? A duplex. Let's take a look and compare. Here we have 2207 South Dunsmore Avenue, which sold on October 2nd, 2020 for $935,000. This property is a duplex, so each unit has 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and each unit is a little under 1,200 square feet. The location is solid, just a few minutes away from our starter home, near the neighborhood Pickfair Village. Again, this isn't the first place you'd look to buy a forever home, but for a starter home, it's a great location. Let's look inside. Handsome exterior, handsome interior, nice wood floors. Okay, the kitchen is boring, the bathroom is boring, and the backyard is boring, but at least there's a nice front yard. So with this property, you're not getting the super adorableness of a starter home. These kitchen and bathroom finishes are often called renter grade. So you're sacrificing that HGTV feel, but take a look at these numbers. So right off the bat, we're going to raise the interest rate to 3.53%. A loan on a multifamily property will typically carry a higher rate than a loan on a regular house. Will it be 0.5% higher? Probably not that high, but let's use 0.5% to be conservative. This duplex is actually a little less expensive than our starter home, so the funds to close are a touch lower at $205,700. However, the higher interest rate increases the mortgage payment, making the PITI payments about $100 more per month. But of course, this PITI payment is going to be offset by the rent you collect from your tenant. Now, this property was listed with a tenant already in place in the second unit, paying $2,138 per month in rent. Here's how that looks when you account for the additional expenses incurred by having a tenant. As you can see, from the $2,138 per month, we subtract expenses for utilities, upkeep, and vacancy. If this seems over your head, don't be discouraged. It just means you need to work with an agent who understands these kinds of numbers. And for any viewers who know how to analyze these numbers, here's a short explanation of my underwriting. I'm using a $60 per month utility cost because in Los Angeles, landlords pay for their tenants' water. Maintenance and repairs include CapEx and is at 8% of collected rent, which may seem low, but is appropriate for such a high rent market. And I'm underwriting a vacancy allowance of 4%, which is the long-term average vacancy rate in Los Angeles. All right, back to regular English. So when you combine your PITI payment with your rental income, the actual out-of-pocket cost of living in this duplex is only $2,600 per month. That's only a few $100 more than renting, and instead you're owning. So what does this do for our long-term gains? Let's take a look. This time, our gains are comprised of 3 elements: principal paydown, appreciation, and the cash savings generated by paying $2,600 per month instead of $4,300 per month to own the property. So the appreciation gains are about the same because the properties cost about the same amount and would appreciate at the same rate. The principal paydown is a little less because the higher interest rate means more of each mortgage payment is interest and not principal. But look at the new category of cash savings. In 2 years, you would save $41,000 cash. In 5 years, you would save $102,000 cash. And I know I'm saying the word cash a lot, but it's an important distinction. Home equity is real, but you don't get it until you sell or refinance. And we're about to touch on refinancing in a second. But money that you're not having to pay towards your mortgage, that's cash in the bank, baby. That's money that you have today to save, to reinvest, to spend on a new car if you want to, though I really don't think you should. High car payments are the worst if you're trying to build up your net worth and a solid financial footing, but I digress. The point is, the duplex gives you $35,000 more to work with after 2 years, or $90,000 more to work with after 5 years. But there's even more, and now we're going to talk about refinancing. If you buy a starter home in Los Angeles, when it's time to trade up to a forever home, your only option really is to sell the starter home. The economics of renting out a house in Los Angeles don't work well at all, especially if you bought a house in move-in ready condition within the last couple of years. But if you buy a duplex in Los Angeles, the economics work a lot better. In the case of this duplex, the second unit was rented for $2,138, but market rent for a 2-1 in this area is actually closer to $2,500 per month. If you lived here for 5 years and then moved out, given the natural growth of rent in Los Angeles, market rent in 5 years will be closer to $3,000 per month. Combine that with rental increases on the existing tenant, which are regulated by rent control laws, and you're looking at a monthly income from the property of $5,500 per month when you move out in 5 years. With that amount of income, it'd be nice to keep the property, right? But what about money for your forever home? You need to sell one property to buy another, right? Actually, no. You can refinance. I know we've already covered a lot of ground, but let me quickly explain how this works. When you buy a home with a 20% down payment, that means your equity in the property is 20%. The other 80% is the loan balance, which you pay off at the same time that the property appreciates in value. In the example of our duplex, after 5 years, because you've paid off some of the loan and the property has appreciated in value, your equity in the property will be at 41% of its value. Now, generally speaking, a bank will lend you 75% of the value of a property you own to do with as you please. This is called a cash-out refinance. The new loan first pays off the old loan, and then you take the difference in cash. In our duplex example, that difference is about $180,000. Now, this isn't nearly as much money as you would have if you sold the property and recouped all of your equity. If you sold, you'd be looking at closer to $600,000 of total proceeds. But it's important to know that you have this additional option with the duplex. Maybe you've continued to save for 5 years and you don't need more than $180,000 to put toward your next home. Maybe your life goals have changed and you've realized you don't need a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom forever home with a pool, gazebo, and grotto. Either way, with a duplex, you have options, and that's exciting. So we've covered a lot, but I have to share one more example that demonstrates how you can squeeze even more equity out of a duplex to put toward your forever home. And no, I'm not talking about doing a huge renovation, though that is something you should look into if you have the temperament for it. What I'm talking about is using the rental income from the duplex to afford a more expensive duplex. What do I mean? Well, with our starter home, we were looking at putting down about $200,000 and spending about $4,000 per month on the PITI payments. What if we stuck to those numbers? What if we looked for a duplex that we could buy with about $200,000 down and then live in for about $4,000 per month after accounting for the rental income? It would be a more expensive property, which would mean bigger appreciation gains, which could benefit us even more in 2 or 5 years. Well, I took a look, and here's what I found. Check out 1075 South Rimpau Boulevard, which sold on September 4th, 2020 for $1.32 million. Each unit has 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and is about 1,000 square feet. The location, frankly, is a little better than our starter home and first duplex example. The Mid-Wilshire area is rather nice, and not just for starter homes, but even for forever homes too. Let's take a look inside. The exterior is kind of weird looking. The inside is very freshly renovated. Nice kitchen, washer dryer, solid bathrooms, big paved driveway in the back, lots of parking, small garage, even a small yard in the front where there's even more parking. Wow, good looking home. Now let's see what the numbers look like. So we're still using our 3.53% interest rate for multifamily properties, but this time we're only going to put 14% down. That allows us to keep our funds to close at $211,000, just $1,000 more than we had to put down on the starter home. Now, because we're putting down less than 20%, we'll have to pay mortgage insurance, or PMI. That and the high price of the property brings our PITI payment to $7,087 per month. Ouch. But that second unit is currently rented for $3,300 per month. Subtract our expenses, and the net income from the rental unit is $2,844 per month. That leaves a monthly out-of-pocket cost of $4,243. So we're basically on par with our starter home. Now let's see how these two properties differ when it comes to the long-term gains. Wow, we're looking at an additional $40,000 in gains if we go with the duplex for 2 years. And if we go with the duplex for 5 years, we're looking at an additional $115,000 in gains. Let's break these numbers down. So firstly, there's a lot more principal paydown on the more expensive property. That's the result of the larger mortgage payment, which of course would have a larger principal portion. I call this the double leveraging effect of living in a duplex. The first leverage is your loan. Then the second leverage is having rental income to offset that loan payment. The result is a lot more principal paydown for the same monthly out-of-pocket. The cash savings is negligible because monthly out-of-pocket was about the same for each property. Then we get to the appreciation, which again is magnified by the larger value of the property. 4% per year compounding on $1.32 million adds up to a lot more than 4% on $965,000. On both the 2-year and the 5-year projection, your gains from the South Rimpau duplex are 40% more than your gains from the Comey Avenue starter home. That's 40% more capital to put toward your forever home or other investments or anything you want. And with the duplex, you have the option of holding onto it as an additional source of income if that better suits your needs down the road. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I rest my case with one very important point. In our expenses, we accounted for vacancy. The long-term vacancy rate in Los Angeles is 4%, so we deducted 4% of our rental income as a vacancy allowance. The reason we do this is so that our financial projection accounts for the amount of vacancy we should expect on the property over the long term. But even though we're accounting for vacancy in the math, it's also important that you account for vacancy in your actual life. If you do have a vacancy while living in a duplex, you'll likely go 1 or 2 months before your next tenant occupies the unit. It's important that you have enough money in reserves to cover those 1 or 2 months, and ideally more months just to play it safe. My wife and I keep a 6-month emergency fund, and when we bought our duplex, we made sure that our emergency fund included 6 months of mortgage payments without any rental income. That's the cushion that makes me feel perfectly comfortable, and it's important that you find the right cushion for you. Well, that's it, friends. Look, if you're in or around Los Angeles and you think you might want to consider buying a duplex as your starter home, please get in touch. I'd love to help. Comment to me below or visit me on my website, investmentpropertynerd.com, and send me a message from there. If you've learned something new in this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel. It's validating and I really appreciate it. Also, if there are any topics we touched on today that you'd like me to go into in more depth, let me know in the comments and I promise to get on it. I'm Jon Schwartz, and I'll see you next time on Investment Property Nerd.